Profit or life? The Seabrook Station debate. The story behind the Seabrook Station debate consists of a single motive. A motive so meaningful to a specific group of people that million-dollar businessmen and women were but petty obstacles in three-piece suits. So committed to that police beatings were but battle scars left to explain on later dates. So mind-opening that a whole nation rose to its calling. This motive raised one simple question to a generation. What is more important, profit or life? The Seabrook plant conflict, the first anti-nuclear civil disobedience protest in the United States, united a community, a state, and a nation against the negative effects of nuclear power on our environment and societies. The first nuclear power station was created from a beach submarine reactor in Shippingport, Pennsylvania. It was converted into a power station with an output of 60 MWs. The station was utilized soon after the discovery in 1939 by German scientists that splitting molecular bonds of elements like plutonium and uranium could generate energy, otherwise known as nuclear fission. By 1967, the United States had 28 times as much nuclear capacity on order than it did in operation. Or in other words, the industry was growing faster than power plants could be built. Nuclear power was first used for bombs in World War II. The amount of energy generated shocked the government and public so greatly that the invention was thought not only to be a miracle, but very terrifying as well. Usage of nuclear power for commercial electric purposes became highly profitable by the 1950s. By 1960, the first massive plant was built in Morris, Illinois. Nuclear power plants use elements with unstable bonds, such as uranium and plutonium, to make steam that derives turbines in an electric generator. Experts see nuclear power beneficial because of its cheap cost, high amount of energy generated, economic stability, and because it does not pollute the air or emit greenhouse gases. Many concerns are also raised though. Mining done to obtain the elements needed is devastating to landscape, groundwater, and radioactive tailings pollute soil and water. Uranium also causes severe health problems, and radioactive nuclear waste will generate an estimated 75,000 metric tons of waste in America by 2015. Only 16% of the world's energy comes from nuclear reactors, with the possibility of disasters far greater than other alternative technologies. The plans for Seabrook Station were similar to other plants. In February 1971, 2 nuclear reactors were planned to be built on the edge of a marsh about 2 miles from the center of Hampton and Hampton Beach. The management of public service did not anticipate difficulties in obtaining the necessary licenses and permits for the Seabrook site, but after construction at an estimated cost of $1 billion, that's exactly what they got. The Public Service Company of New Hampshire was concerned with the impact the plant would have on the adjacent salt marsh. The plan had originally proposed to dump its heated reactor cooling water directly into the Hampton River, but there is public outcry over the well-being of marine life due to the temperature rises which would be in effect in the harbor. So the plant, hoping to quickly resolve any questions looming around the credibility of their policies, spent $600 million building intake and outflow tunnels to carry the cooling water and heated discharge. Unfortunately for the plant, credibility only worsened as the licensing of the plant was investigated more thoroughly. The NRC's credibility went under fire as the licensing of their plant was granted on thin financial, safety, and environmental evidence. The government became more involved with the plant's unstable licensing, as Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis would not back Seabrook under any circumstances. Yet New Hampshire Governor John Sununu was in favor of the site. Without Seabrook, New England would face severe power shortages for years. But organizations like the Environmental Protection Agency did not think that the plant was by any means safe enough to be constructed. Fortunately for the plant, the EPA director overruled the Environmental Protection Agency's rejection of the cooling tunnel discharge system. And right when the plant owners thought they caught a break, more scrutiny piled on. Donald Stever, former Assistant Attorney General of New Hampshire, felt the same way as the majority of the public did. He sought not, quote, so much to indict the NRC as to understand it, unquote. And as the great Roman proverb goes, people fear what they do not understand, and few understood what the Seabrook Station was planning. And so a group of Seabrook natives created the Clamshell Alliance, a group to fight the station's existence using the same method as influential opposers such as Mahatma Gandhi and Henry Thoreau did. This tactic was civil disobedience. Civil disobedience was used by Gandhi to bring guilt into the hearts of British officers who were trying to control India. He led mass groups of Indians to perform nonviolent protests, leaving countless of Indians dead and many more brutally injured. Henry Thoreau was a New Hampshire native who isolated himself and wrote books, articles, essays, journals, and poetry to express an argument for individual resistance to civil government and moral disposition to an unjust state. Seabrook citizens had similar motives to take down a powerful group or enforcing something that were moral to their community's values.
The only way to make change is to keep showing up and to keep the pressure on and to keep exposing our humanity. You may not have to break the law, but you do have to stand up and show up.
Ever since the Public Service Company of New Hampshire had broken ground for construction in August of 1976, the debate over the credibility of the plant's licensing had been debated everywhere, from the press to the several federal courts. As debates wore on, former employees of the plant admitted design and construction flaws. The frequent use of drugs and alcohol among employees surfaced, and fuel was added to the opposers' flame. The degradation of pipes that perform safety functions such as cooling the core of the reactor and in some cases carry radioactive material became the next major flaw in the plant's plan. Even experts were realizing the major inability for the plant to operate, and once the evacuation plan was realized to be unreliable, the public became committed to fighting the plant. Yet no group would be influential as the Clamshell Alliance led the public to be. On May Day 1977, the Clamshell Alliance organized a civil disobedience protest at the Seabrook station. 1,414 demonstrators were arrested after refusing to move for over 24 hours. Not a single protester, man, woman, or child, posted bail, and the state spent an estimated $1 million handling the protest. Harold Marcuse was one of the first protesters to get arrested, and after pleading guilty to the charge of criminal trespass, he was convicted and sentenced to a suspended term. Marcuse, a student at Wesleyan University, had to receive his diploma a year late due to the final exams he missed because of his detaining. He knew he had made a difference to a greater cause. This protest raised the eyebrows of the state and the plant, but more importantly, more of the public fed off the defiant acts of their fellow citizens. Another protest led by the Clamshell Alliance took place when Pilgrim Watch, a nuclear watchdog organization, pointed out that people outside the evacuation plan's 10-mile radius would be greatly affected by an emergency. 100,000 people could be on Hampton Beach during a busy summer weekend, and the traffic problems created by panic-stricken vacationers and local residents attempting to leave the beach would be highly unsafe. Plus, the decontamination centers were only designed to treat 20% of the area residents, and some of these residents won't be able to hear warning sirens. So on June 23, 1978, the Clamshell Alliance led 10,000 demonstrators legally on site. This day-long protest featured nationally known musicians and speakers, and was a turning point as law enforcement's frustration started to boil over and national attention was being drawn to the tiny town of Seabrook, New Hampshire. The SAPL then argued that the construction should be halted until evacuation issues were resolved, leaving the station 25% complete. As protests continued, police became more violent with attack dogs, tear gas, and riot sticks. Life magazine picked up the story, and Time magazine mentioned the public defiance against Seabrook plant as a major step towards pulling the nuclear plug. In 1989, another 800 people were arrested on the plant, and once again media attention buzzed around the David vs. Goliath story. It seems Seabrook Station had a lot of work cut out for them, at a very high price, even to have their first kilowatt of energy generated after 15 years of public protests. Seabrook eventually paid that price, with a $4.5 billion tab to go along with it. The government put in place a 6,000-step law that utilities had to pass in order to improve the safety of their plants, and the surge of power plants slowed from 82 plants in operation in 1984 to only 104 today. Seabrook Station currently operates one reactor on a 900-acre site. It has been in operation for 21 years, but the plant is already seeking licensing for the year 2030, once again bringing debate from opposers of the plant. Seabrook Station has made many efforts to change the minds of opposers. The plant has spent thousands building the Science and Nature Center and building a 1-mile boardwalk around the marsh. In 2002, the plant received ISO 14001 certification, which is an internationally recognized environmental management standard. Also, information on evacuation plans are mailed each year to those living within 10 miles of the plant. None of these efforts could be guaranteed today if not for the relentless protesting of the public, certainly responsible for a chunk of the $6 billion spent on the plant up to today. Over 14 protests involving thousands of people were led over a period of 14 years, and consequently thousands of arrests, beatings, and hours of delays were product of each protest. The argument over whether nuclear power is safer and smarter than alternative technologies is still heard today, and 7 folders full of letters on the Seabrook conflict still sits in Washington, D.C. Whether you support nuclear power or not, you cannot ignore the fact that in the end, the million-dollar businessmen did not have a great effect on the future of the industry. No. Instead, it was the Harold Marcuses who drove from a safe dorm in Connecticut to hold up a sign in New Hampshire and be beaten, arrested, and held convicted for 12 days that were truly influential. The civil disobedience factor distinguished Seabrook from another contested licensing case to a national symbol of the future of nuclear power. Some environmental organizations came full circle and conditionally endorsed nuclear power today, and some NRC commissioners still question the industry's reliability. Yet today's generation should see the Seabrook Station conflict and ask questions like Doug Hill, who did briefs on the Seabrook Station in federal court, asks, "Aren't 2 dubious wars enough to make our voices want to be heard?"